Guys, how's it going? Today we are in the greenhouse working on a couple of projects. We've got two different types of things to start from seed, and then we also have one tray of seedlings that I need to separate and pot up. And I'm so thankful to have projects like this to work on right now, because let me show you what it's like outside. Look at this. Yesterday it was sunny and dry. Today it's a snow globe. It's absolutely beautiful. We're loving it, but kind of wet and cold to be outside working on stuff. This is much better. Hi, Russell. Hi, buddy. Oh, what a good boy. And later today, we're going to gather up our sledding gear and snow clothes. We're going to head out to my parents and meet all the cousins out there, and we're going to do some sledding. It should be really fun. Seeds and sledding today. So this is what we're looking at. This whole tray is full of pink petticoat columbine that we started November 29th. My goal was to have some perennial plants that were bigger, more established by the time we're ready to plant them in spring. And so far, like, this one's performing really, really well. We also started echinacea and teucrium from seed. Echinacea is doing great, but they're pretty small, so they're not ready to separate or pot up yet. And the teucrium, I'm having like so success. I went through and reseeded a bunch of empty cells that never came up. They take like a month to germinate. So I don't know if I'm just being impatient, but it's been a little over a month. So we'll see. We do have a few plants from them so far, and those seeds are a little bit old and maybe they don't hold their germ rate very well. We'll just see how it goes. But if you look in here, you can see some cells have like 10 little plants in them, and some, they're very few, but there's like 2 cells right here that don't have a plant in them. So I think by the end of today, we'll be able to separate all of these and we'll have this whole tray full, but just 1 plant per cell. And then I brought out this tray as well, and we've got a bunch of these like used little 2-inch pots. We'll fill all of these up and we'll have 2 trays of these plants. And we're just gonna leave these out here at this point, now that they've been in the studio under grow lights. But I want them to kind of harden off a little bit, be exposed to a little bit more cold temperatures, and I think we'll have some tough plants. And then these are the 2 types of seeds we're starting, but we've got 2 varieties of each. So we've got our geraniums, which we're going to be starting more than just these, but I don't have them yet. We've got the bullseye light pink, which these are gorgeous. The bullseye series did so great for us last year. I mean, here's the bullseye salmon. Aren't they beautiful? So the bullseye series have these chocolate purple kind of centers in their leaves. And the light pink bullseyes are just a little bit lighter pink than the salmon. But do you remember the bullseye salmon in the parterre behind the Hartley? So beautiful. It's hard to not want to repeat that again this year. And then we also have Maverick Violet, which is a very electric, bright pink. Back in here, you can see the Maverick Quicksilvers. They're doing well in here. Lots of color, but these have more of your traditional, like just clear green leaf. Very floriferous. And then we have 2 varieties of artichoke. So we've got the green globe right here, which is the variety that I usually grow. These are the ones that we started from seed last winter, and we had them in the cold frame of the Hartley, and they were so beautiful. I think it was either a love or a hate sort of thing. I loved them in the cold frames. Aaron hated them in the cold frames, and I kind of got the sense from everyone it was kind of a you either loved it or you didn't, but I thought it was really pretty. And then we've got another variety called Imperial Star, and one of you guys sent this packet out to us. I've never grown this variety, but the interesting thing is that this one says maturity is 85 day, while the green globes are 150 day. And these are not perennial plants here, so to have something that can maybe start maturing a little bit earlier than our green globes would be awesome. However, green globes have been very productive. We get so many artichokes from them. So we'll just see. It'll be fun to compare notes on those 2. And I've got some smaller seed trays to put the geraniums and artichokes in. But this early in the season, there's really only 3 types of annual plants we're starting from seed. And that would be your artichokes, geraniums, and lisianthus, which we're not starting today. Those seeds are in the house. And I'm looking at the snow thinking, I think just doing artichokes and geraniums would be great today. We'll save lisianthus for another day. And I am running an experiment with the lisianthus from last year. I dug up 2 from the cut flower garden just to see what they would do in the greenhouse, and so far they've done nothing. They look exactly the same as they did when we dug them out. Like, this one was full of buds when we dug it out, and they've just sat here looking the same. I think they just need more heat, but we'll see what happens in the spring. If we've got these 2 plants that are so much further along, we might just have some really early color. The only other things that we're starting from seed this time of year, and it's really not necessary to do it, would be perennials. A lot of them you can start a little bit later. They'll just be smaller when you put them out, but then you'll avoid the potting up stage. Just for us, we plant so many things out in the spring that having something a little bit larger with a more established root system, it's much easier to keep them happy and keep them watered, as opposed to popping out a bunch of like little tiny plugs. Those are tough when you're running drip tube that has the holes every 18 inches. To get full coverage enough to reach all those little plant roots, that's tough. The only other thing in the way of seed starting this time of year, like this early, would be to get your winter sowing stuff going, which there are some guidelines to follow when it comes to winter sowing. Usually you're doing perennials, cold tolerant things like cold crops, but we do have other videos on that. I'm not sure that I'm going to tackle much for winter sowing this year. We'll see, never say never, but today, this is what we're doing. First thing we're gonna do before we even get our soil out is I'm gonna write out all my labels before everything gets super, super dirty. These are already dirty, but let's get those handled. I use the garden marker here. This tends to last the longest. There we go. Gotta clear my work surface first. Okay. So for the up potting project with the columbine, I'm going to use a mixture of regular potting soil with a bit of seed starting mix. I don't want to do 100% seed starting mix like I started them in because it is a lighter blend. It tends to not hold on to as much moisture as this does. So when we start incorporating this, I feel like it gets the plant a little bit more ready for its outdoor world, and it helps me to not have to water it as often. So grab a little of that and a little bit of our seed starting mix. Gonna mix it up and pre-moisten it a bit as well, just like I do when I'm starting a brand new tray of seeds. Okay, now I did start the day with clean nails. Lasts about 2 seconds. Oh, that's beautiful. Look at that. Give it a good mix. That's perfect right there. Now I'm going to fill up all of these little pots with soil. Setup is done. I was able to fit 50 of these little containers in this tray. So this one has 72 cells in it, and this one will have 50 cells in it. That's a lot of plants. I'm going to be using my knife right here just to help me make little holes. Let's do the first one together here. So let's just grab, I guess, this tray right here. You can see some roots already coming out the bottom. So what I'm going to do is just ease this out of its container there. And look at that. Look at all those roots. And there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plants in this one cell. So you can just take and gently kind of ease the plants apart. There's one plant right there. So then we'll come over to our fresh tray and just do our best to gently guide this one down, making sure we pop all those roots down underneath the soil surface. We may need to add a little bit of soil just to kind of tamp it in. But there's one. Now it's got all of this airflow around it. It's not going to be competing for space with the others. We're just going to have some happier plants. And I think today we'll do like a half-strength fertilizer. I haven't fertilized these yet. So we'll go grab some of the liquid fertilizer and get that done once we're all done separating these. So let's continue with this one root ball. See, there are some really small ones. We really just want to get these nice big ones out. So there's another plant. Whoops. And It's a little one. There we go. So let's get this next one planted. So from that first cell right there, we got these 3 nice big plants, and I'm going to shoot for getting all the same size in here so they'll be growing at kind of the same rate. And then I'm going to save all the itty bitty ones. Like there were 4 little itty bitty ones that came from this same cell. I'll save those to the very end, and then we'll fill in any empty gaps. And you do not have to separate seedlings like this. I just love this particular variety and I want it everywhere. So I'd like to have as many as possible, but you can just thin them out too. You can take little snips and snip out the extra plants that you don't want and just leave 1 per cell, or you can gently pull them out. Cutting them does help minimize risk of root damage to other plants near it, but you can sometimes, some varieties will regrow, even if you snip them off, like snapdragons. So there's nothing wrong with coming in here and, you know, there's like 3 or 4 larger plants in this one cell and there's this little one. You can just ease that little one out. That one would still plant out okay because the roots didn't pull off, but you can just thin them out and toss those extras. Not a big deal. There's another one. The roots on these things, my goodness. And I don't know, maybe in the end we get a container and just pop all the little extra babies in just a big pot and let them grow together and see what happens. Be a fun experiment. Okay, so let's get the rest of this part done. All right, done with phase 1 of today's projects, and I'm so thrilled with this. So this is our original tray. Each one of the cells just has 1 nice looking plant in it. This is our second tray. Look at all of these, and they've been watered in with half-strength fertilizer, which I put the bottle over there. I'll go grab it in a second. But, oh, I'm so excited. So this one fit 50. This one has 72. So what is that? 122 plants? Something like that. And then with the leftover seedlings, I went and grabbed these containers from the barn. And I thought, well, you may as well, right? Like just plant them up in just straight up potting soil. I used the leftover blend of soil in here, but it only came up to about there. So I just topped it up with regular potting soil. and then just nested all the rest of the seedlings into this soil. Won't that be amazing if it works? We can have some great big bouquets of columbine in the spring. They have such pretty foliage, and the blooms on these are just so nice. So we may end up needing to thin these out, but I just went ahead and put them all in there just in case we lost some, you know, in case they don't like this arrangement. Well, we'll see what happens. But it's better than tossing the plants. You know, and if we have the soil and the pots here, may as well. And then with the fertilizer, I usually don't start fertilizing seedlings until they've got their first set of true leaves, which most of these do. So you can see like on this one right here, the first set of leaves, they're not true leaves, they're just kind of more rounded. And then they start forming up their sets of true leaves. So I usually wait until that happens to do any fertilizing. So they've looked like this for a little while. I could have fertilized them already, but today seemed like a good day just to settle them in with some nice fertilizer. So anyway, I used the Grow right here, and I didn't really, it's like half a cap per quart of water. So I did about roughly half that. Okay, the second part of our project, the geranium and artichoke seeds, this will be super easy. I'm gonna pot them out here. I am gonna take them into the studio because the artichokes in particular, it says to germinate them at 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which we keep at roughly 70 degrees in there. And I could pop them on a heat mat in there to speed it up, but we're doing this so early that it kind of affords us the time to not need a seedling heat mat because they just have extra time. The geranium says at 75 degrees germination and bottom heat improves results and is recommended. So maybe we will put them on a heat mat. Either way, we're going to do the messy part out here and then take them into the studio and get them all set up. Also, the artichokes are going to go 1/4 inch deep in the soil, and the geraniums, it says to barely cover. So we're going to go ahead and bury the artichokes, and then with the geraniums, we'll probably just cover them over with vermiculite. How you doing, buddy? Oh, he's feeling so much better, aren't ya? Okay. Excuse me, bud. Oh, I gotta clear all this stuff off too. I think this is my favorite part of the whole day. Just putting my hands in the soil. Oh. Got the 3 trays here, and I'm just gonna assembly line this process. So we'll do all the soil in, then all the seeds in, then all the vermiculite in. Tends to make it a little faster. Huh. There were only 9 seeds in this packet. Should have been 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 in that one. Huh, worked out. All right, we're done. We've got our 2 trays of artichokes and we've got 1 tray of geraniums. I did pop the seedling heat mat underneath there, mostly just for the benefit of the geraniums. I've grown geraniums from seed using a heat mat and not using a heat mat both ways, and I have pretty much the same success rate. It just happens a little bit faster with the heat mat, so it's not 100% necessary, but I had one that wasn't in use, so I thought, well, why not? And it will provide a little bit of heat for our artichoke seeds as well. So they are just looking good. Now our echinacea here, you can kind of see, we've got kind of spottiness in terms of the big plants, but there is a little plant. I've looked through every single cell. I think there's maybe like 2 cells that don't have seedlings, but like this one's got one coming up. You just can't see them very well yet. It's weird that they grow so unevenly that way. So we are done with our projects for today. I was just gonna pop back outside and show you what it looks like now. It's still snowing. It slowed down just a little bit, but it's supposed to keep on like this for the next several hours. I think we'll barely have enough to sled, but we're gonna give it a go anyway. And you guys, that is it for today's projects. I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed it. It's so nice to be in the greenhouse, you guys, when it's just, the snow's coming down. It's so peaceful. And then the whole act of starting seeds just makes it feel like the growing season feel that much closer because we're just getting back into the swing of it, back into the routine. I have not planned out, well, much of anything. But in the way of seed starting, usually, you know, we've got the big rows in the cut flower garden, which is now the formal flower garden. And it kind of didn't even matter what I started from seed. I could always find spots for it. And I just started big trays of stuff and then just popped it out there. This year, I need to have a little bit more of a plan as to what's going out there and how I'm going to plant it. So I need to figure that out. And that way we can know exactly what we've got in the way of seed starting over the next several weeks. But it's fun to get going with it. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you're having a great day and we will see you in the next one. Bye.